and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at my Troy-Bilt TB6044XP 4-cycle string trimmer, obviously from Troy-Bilt, or really to be fair, MTD yard machines. And we're going to be going over a couple little issues I've been having with this. So this unit that you're looking at in front of you right here, I bought or actually got it in 2013. I bought my first one in 2012. There's a bearing that flew out. I got a new one under warranty, no problem, from Lowe's. I've had this one since 2013. It's no longer under warranty. And I've been having troubles, and if we look over here on the side, where there's like some oil that's leaking out of the engine, even if I wipe it down around here on the air filter, oil's leaking out. Sometimes when I go to pull the string, the little catch on the string mechanism doesn't work, and I've got to take this apart and reattach that to get that to work correctly. The other big issue I've been having has been whenever I go to start this up, I have to basically put this power head below the attachment end and run it and toggle the throttle for maybe 2 to 3 minutes to get the engine, I guess, to warm up before it'll actually work. And so I'm going to try to work on that today to try to tune this up to get that fixed. And so I thought I'd take you along for the ride to see what we find on this. The tools you're going to need to make this repair are going to be, let's start with a parts tray to hold your screws, preferably magnetic. You're going to want a 5/8 spark plug socket. This is an extra deep one. I really like this one. Got a video all about this one. Any 5/8 will work. And then a ratchet to be able to turn that with. I got a little stubby 3/8 here. Works great for that. You probably don't want a little thumb wheel ratchet. That's probably not going to work very well. You also are going to need a T25 Torx screwdriver. A stubby will not work. You'll need some length to that. And then you also want a T25 Torx bit. Mine's a 1/4 inch drive, and I use that with a short 1/4 inch extension and a 1/4 inch ratchet to be able to remove our oil pan housing. You also may want some needle nose pliers with a set of either cutters on the inside here or a pair of scissors. You'll need that to be able to cut and trim some fuel lines. And you may want the needle nose pliers to be able to pull the fuel lines through the fuel tank. And you also may want to have just a pair of extra long needle nose pliers, again, just to be able to reach into the fuel tank. I'm going to use straight ones. They also make ones with slightly angled heads that would work fine. Pair of pliers, again, working with fuel lines and parts, you may want that. I always think my trusty pliers are always useful to have around. Talked about a pair of scissors. You also may want the jump start adapter for your drill, just to verify you've got clearance in the back when you reassemble everything. You're also going to need a feeler gauge for the spark plug that has a 0.25 leaf. And then you're also going to need a special puller tool, but this is included with your fuel line kit. So you don't really need to go and buy that. That comes with your fuel line kit. Pair of safety glasses. You also may want some cardboard for your bench and some blue shop towels just to clean up. And so let's get started on this project. One other set of tools, if you will, that you're going to need is an oil pan. We'll catch the oil because we're going to drain the oil out, as well as something else to be able to contain the excess fuel, as you have to drain the fuel tank as well for this repair. So for the fuel, I'm just going to use a little Maxwell House, just a little small thing here of, this is International Swiss Mocha. Doesn't matter. Some little plastic container you can safely put fuel in and then either dispose of it properly or put it back in if it's clean and refilter it. The parts for today's repair include the following. First one here in the corner, let's get this out of the way. This is what's called a click link. This is just a replacement assembly for this connects to the attachments. We set that aside. I'm also going to be replacing the fuel filter and the fuel lines in the gas tank. Also got a few extra fuel lines here. This is an Arnold kit. The other ones are all genuine MTD. We're going to be replacing the spark plug while I got it all apart. It seems like they might have changed the spark plug here just a little bit from what's specified in the manual. I think it's the exact same plug, it's just the part number is slightly different. And I also have a brand new carburetor. And the reason why I did this is the carburetor was super cheap. And I thought rather than trying to take apart the carburetor, clean it, put it back together, I think this was maybe 13 bucks. I'll put prices and links below. They are Amazon affiliate links. They do help support this channel if you're interested in some of these parts. And so I just thought it'd be just as easy to go ahead and replace the carburetor while I'm at it. And then, so all these other parts you can find if you do the teardown on the on the Troy-Bilt website. This final part took a little bit more digging to dig up. And this is an oil pan assembly. And so this comes in a box. It comes with some gaskets and some bolts that have thread locker already on them. And then when we take this out of the box, what we have is our oil pan, a little tape here that holds down this gasket. One of the things I could not find for the life of me was the torque spec on these 6 screws. So if you look at our new part, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws that connect this onto the back of the engine. A couple little connecting pins, an alignment housing here, and then this is the filler neck for our oil, where our oil fill neck connects in, and the gasket for that is in this parts bag as well. One of the notable things you'll see how this has metal dogs as opposed to plastic dogs, and these don't appear to have the same sets of problems that the other ones did with flipping out. Perhaps a little slight design improvement on that, so that looks pretty good. The final part that you're going to need for this repair is going to be a new starting assembly. Now, one of the things that's important on this, and this is particularly important if the oil pan you're removing has these plastic, we'll call them dogs, that catch in the recoil starter when you pull the red handle, you're going to need a slightly different one of these. But if you're going to be switching to the metal one like I am, you're going to have to buy this part. It doesn't come in any fancy packaging. It just came in a brown cardboard box with a plastic sleeve over it. And then it also came with the replacement torque screws for it. So now let's go back to our trimmer. So I'm going to pull the boot here off the spark plug, just like that. After we pull the boot off, we're going to put our spark plug socket on. And we're going to pull out the spark plug. This is my SK extra deep spark plug socket. This is great. So here's what the spark plug looks like. And it's black, and that's just what the plug looks like. We'll set that aside. So now to begin the tear down of this, I'm going to first empty the oil out of the engine into an oil pan, just to get the oil out, because I think that's going to be important here in just a moment. So let's drain the oil. With the oil drained out, I'm going to at least clean up some of these other cables here, just so I don't get my hands too dirty with a cloth or a shop towel. I also have a piece of cardboard here set up on the bench just to help keep my bench from getting too dirty. So we're going to take off the air filter cover. I'll set that aside. This is especially, so that's definitely got liquid all over it. I presume that to be oil. And then we've got the filter sponge. Then now the next thing we're going to do is remove this housing back here and the housing on top. That's going to use a T25 Torx, so using a T25 Torx screwdriver. We're going to start with the one in front. There's one buried right here. And then we'll come around back and then grab and with those 3 screws, this part comes off. And if you look at this cover, you got the fuel primer bulb here. And now with this loosened and out of the way, we can come now and access this cover plate here. And there's going to be a machine screw on the top here. And then there's going to be 2 more screws, one here and one down there. That one is a different screw. That is whereas the rest of them are more coarse thread, that is a fine thread screw. And then with that out, this comes off, if I got that screw all the way out. There we go. And now this part slides right off, and this has the recoil mechanism for the starter. See, there's your line that turns, and there's these little plastic pawls here that then catch against these little plastic dogs here and here. I've had a few times where these pop out of the way and don't quite work, because when these are set, these have to be back here. So for now, I'll put these screws back out of the way. So now the next thing we want to do is get this gas tank assembly out of the way. And so pay attention here, we've got a blue-green hose here on top that goes towards the back of the carburetor. We got a black hose here that comes around to the front of the carburetor. We're going to have to disconnect that. And so there's just the two hoses that go into the fuel tank here that we're going to need to disconnect. And then if we look at our primer bulb, you can see we also have the connections here at the bulb. There we go, there's that one off there. And then now let's work on getting this other one off. This one may be harder. I may just as easy just pull it off at, there we go, let's pull that one off at the carburetor. So here's our gas tank, we'll set that aside. We'll wipe our hands down and we'll pull this cable here off of the other. So we'll leave that there. There we go. And so now we've got this disconnected. We'll set that aside. Now if we keep looking in here with some of this torn apart, we can possibly see right down there a bunch of gunk and grime and other just debris here. Some of this is possibly gasoline, some of this is oil. We'll be getting that all cleaned up as we go through this. And so now we need to remove the oil pan. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as I showed you with the screws. We'll use our T25 Torx and loosen up this assembly. I expect there to still be some residual oil. I'm just going to start with loosening. I also have a socket here too. There's that. Now that leaves two screws left, one here and one there, but they are both blocked by the filler neck for the oil, so we're going to have to remove that. Next, I probably should have just ordered a replacement one of these, but I didn't. And then this just has one screw right here that holds this on. It's nice that all these are just a straight up T25 Torx. I'm not changing tools frequently to do this project. And that pulls out just like this. I'm going to set that down. See, this is definitely all covered in crud. I probably should have just ordered a new one of those for what it's worth, but I didn't. And now we have the last two screws to break free. And now comes the moment of truth. I'm going to flip this over, and now with a little bit of persuasion, here we go. Here's our oil pan, and it is off. Here's what this looks like with 4 years worth of wear in it. You can see there's still a little bit of oil at the bottom there. That's all lubricated up. Now let's look at the engine, the other bottom half of that engine there, and we can see what this looks like here. If we look here, we can see we've got the bottom half of our cylinder with a counterweight here that spins with this one cylinder here. Obviously there's that oil bath that keeps that lubricated. I've got the spark plug out at the top, so I'm not going to create any accidental start here, but you can see where there's that oil there. And the other thing we're going to be doing right back here is just looking at the seal here to make sure there's no gasket material left on the seal. Any other foreign matter that's inside this housing. Everything looks clean. We can also use this to be able to clean up any other debris that we see on the side of the engine here. This is positive. I'm not really seeing any contaminants actually in here in the engine. Make sure if you're using a cloth like I am, you don't actually accidentally leave some of that cloth material behind. Now let's grab our new part, which is right here. It has the tape on it. Now let's put this side by side, if I can get this lined up right. Here we go, here's a quick look at our part. Here's our old one here, you can see the oil still in there, and the new one here with the tape on the side. These look basically the same. If we go side to side like this, our bolt pattern matches identical, which is good. We got our pin, so this part should work. It's always good to double check that. We're going to move this tape here before we put this in place. Let's take a closer look at the two oil pans. Here is the new one with the metal dogs, and here's the old one with the plastic dogs. One important measurement here I want to point out is if we take a look at the distance or the length of this shaft here, of the jump start shaft back to where it connects to the engine, on the old one here with the plastic dogs is with my dial calipers here, about 4.63 inches. If I look at the new part and that same measurement is actually about 6.98, almost 7 inches for that exact same measurement. And so as a result of that difference in measurement, that's why we have to actually change our rear cover to this one that's just slightly deeper, that can better accommodate it with that's noted by this more flanged opening rather than it being flat. So now let's proceed to attach our new oil pan. It's interesting how I feel like Troy-Bilt or MTD never really puts out a good bit of information on exactly what they've updated from what parts they've updated on a model between various model years. It'd be nice if there was some comprehensive guide of what was interchangeable and what you might want to update so you can have a better, stronger, newer unit without having to buy a new one. So this part here did come with the gasket. Removing the tape here, double checking that. So put this in place, line up those pins there. And so what you may or may not have seen right there is that the back of that piston has to seat into one of these two holes. It doesn't matter which one. And so now that I've got that seated, now I can come back with my new screws. I think we have our first quirk with this repair. These screws that were included are just slightly smaller and use a T20 as opposed to a T25 driver, and the size of these screws is actually smaller than what came out. So it looks like we are going to have to reuse our old screws after all, although we will still need this for our filler neck for the oil. So interesting quirk that we will have to reuse this after all. I figured this project might have a handful of little quirks like that, since it seems like MTD does not put out a lot of repair information on this unit. So I'm just going to start these by hand just to get things all seated. Obviously MTD would prefer that you actually buy a brand new unit. I would, if I can, prefer to just rebuild this one. I'm going to go all the way around and get these screws started so when I come back I can have somewhat already even clamping force around that gasket. I'm not really sure why they changed the size of those screws. That's kind of perplexing. These old ones fit through just fine, and they still got thread locker on them. All right, I think I've got that pretty good there, so let's come back with the ratchet and begin the tightening process here. Again, I don't actually have a torque spec for this. I wish I actually did, and again, like I've said before, if you know what that is, please. I'm probably going to be going not quite all the way there here at first. All right, so I think that feels at least close to the original torque spec. Again, I'm using the word feels close to it. Now the next thing is on this filler neck. I need to clean this thing up. This is a mess, as you can tell. I'm hopeful that this one will fit on this given the screw change. Really wasn't anticipating the change in the screw pitch or the screw size. That's kind of surprising, but and so it looks like this actually will still fit in fine just like that. That looks good. Now we did get a new oil gasket with this, so I might go ahead and put that on. Just gonna use a pair of pliers here to pull this one off. Like that. We'll put on the new gasket. Just like that. I figure if we got the new gasket, we might as well use it. There we go. That new gasket definitely makes for a tighter fit. Now I will go with one of the new screws here, since this obviously threads into. Oh, interesting. That screw doesn't even fit either. How peculiar. So it looks like none of the screws that came with it actually fit. How amusing. Not sure I would have seen that one coming. And so we will reuse the screws there. You would have thought the screws they shipped with it would have actually fit it. But what am I thinking? It's interesting that this is actually only held on by one screw. I would have thought there might have been a second screw in there. There we go. Now we got our fill neck assembly there. We're going to set our old part here aside that we've now replaced successfully. So now that the engine side is done, let's now turn our attention to the carburetor assembly right here. We'll put the back cover on here. We're just going to leave the back cover off so we have maximum access there. And there's a couple screws here that we will need to pull out to get to our carburetor. I'm very curious to see how this carburetor will end up looking when we get it off. Pretty good size screw here. And both of these have little sleeves on them. Let's see, is there a third bolt? Yep. And there's two more screws back here. All right, there we go. That's loose. Now if we look right here, we've got a little catch here on our carburetor that we're going to have to slide out. That pops out just like that. Here's our gasket here. And then over here we've got an air intake hose that is connected to this holder here. We can actually leave that alone. We don't need to necessarily replace that. What I want to get to is this assembly right here for the carburetor, and that pops out just like that. So if you look at the carburetor here, we got our fuel line coming off here. We're going to need to rebuild that. For this line here, this one actually goes up into the button on the upper housing here. The rest of this here is all sealed. There's the gasket there. And so this actually goes to the back, and this little adjustment screw here goes to the back of the unit. And then this little cable right here that adjusts the throttle slides right in there. And so this little cable here, if I pull the lever on the unit, you can see where that adjusts it right there to adjust the throttle. Now with the access, you can also go ahead and I'll take some Q-tips here and clean up the engine here. Now over here with my other bit of parts, I got my carburetor assembly. We'll open the bag on that and take out a brand new carburetor. We'll make sure that they're the same. You can see these all look basically the same. I'm not seeing any difference here. This one on the right's brand new. And then buried in the bag is our gasket. We're going to need that, and that gasket's going to go right there. As you can see, on our used one. And so our next order of business is to be able to come up with this fuel line. And so to go to our set of Arnold fuel line parts, the so-called variety pack. And so now for this fuel line, what we're going to do is I'm going to look at how long this existing one is. And I'm going to cut this one to be just slightly longer. I don't think we're going to need the whole thing. Use a pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut that, I don't know, right about there. So that should give me just enough extra, a little bit of room to work. And then this will go right here. We'll press that in place. There we go. So now we've got our new carburetor and a fuel line attached to it. We've got a little bit of extra slack here. We can always cut that down a little bit shorter if we have troubles with that later. Look at any other comparison differences here. I'm not seeing anything to the naked eye that looks different. Although there is, interesting here, there appears to be a gasket on this used one here that we're going to need to pay attention to. I'm going to see if I can salvage this, because I did not order a replacement paper fiber gasket. And it did not come with one. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to see if I can salvage that onto here. I wish I would have ordered a new one of those. I think I got this scraped off fine. Would have been ideal to have that, but I think we're in business. I don't see any generational marks on here that indicate any notable difference here. These both say Walbro. Let's see if we can get a part number. WYLA4, and they both have a number 4 stamped on it. This has a code 16, this has a code 47, not sure if that means anything, but they both have that Walbo marking on it. If you know anything about Walbo, please leave that in the comments below. And so now we've got our assembly, and let's go back over to our trimmer and begin the installation of our new carburetor. Okay, over at the trimmer, we've got some of our parts here that fell off. There was this gasket here, which is going to line up. If you look here, see there's a little groove there to that top set back there, and there's a matching green line right here on this gasket. We'll take the green and match those together. In other words, that should go like this with the green side up. That's nice and color coordinated. And then we've got this, and so this is actually going to sit like this, because remember that screw goes up and to the back side, and this is where our throttle cable is going to connect eventually. We'll save that for later. So if you look at this assembly here, you see there's this little extra side hole here on the carburetor, lines up with the extra little side hole here on this gasket. We talked about the green to green earlier. We'll make a little carburetor sandwich here with this gasket, if you will, and then this is going to sit up here like this. I mean, now comes the fun part of getting our routing done of our cables and our screws without knocking this too far out of place. We will take our screws, and our screws at the top here will hold this in place. And these screws are going to go through with this little spacer sitting into the air cleaner assembly holder. We'll drop this. This is going to go through the top here. It's going to go through our carburetor, and then our gasket and our other little standoff there. Get that down, and that's going to help make our carburetor sandwich here stay together. as we try to get this actually into the proper position onto our engine. There's these screws here at the bottom that I'll just lightly put, see if I can get one of these in just for a little bit of quick alignment purposes. Remember, our fuel tank goes right below this, just so you know where you're at on the unit. Okay, so that's all lined up there, so that should help this top side here being lined up to these holes here. All right, that's in. There we go. There we go. We got that all put back together. Take my cloth in here and just rub this down again just to get some residual debris out of here. It'd be nice to have this a little bit cleaner than whenever we had it before. And so if you're wondering, there's this little lever here that adjusts. If you move this lever here, this adjusts the amount of air that's going through and into the carburetor, is what this little lever here does. And then now on the back side, we have to connect our throttle cable. If you have to, use the release lever on the control to get enough room for it. We can push that down there to make this a little easier. Let's see if that works. There we go. It comes up like that. Now you can see where that pulls that down. We got our fuel line here. See, that's not impeding our fuel line. This is going up into that primer bulb. So we're good so far. So spark plug wire that goes back over there. And so now the next thing is the rest of our fuel tank assembly. So if we look at our fuel tank assembly here, this is definitely got some dirt on it. We've got a couple of lines. So I scrub this down just a bit here to get this just clean up just a little bit. You can see the yellowing from the gasoline. And that this actually goes something like this. But this line right here is our fuel filter and fuel line. So if we open up our gas tank, you may or may not be able to see at the end of this is the white fuel filter. It's also interesting, the bottom of mine, there's also a piece of black plastic that we're going to need to be able to get out that I'm not sure where that came from, but that'll need to go as well. So now with our fuel tank, what I'm going to do is I've got this little plastic container here, and I'm going to pour the amount of fuel in here. I try to run this at least, or not fill it up too far last time I used it before doing this here. I'm just going to pour out my fuel. So now if we look at our fuel line repair kit, you'll see we've got some instructions. We've got a new primer bulb. We've got some fun parts in here. One of these is going to be a specialty puller tool that we're going to need to complete the job. So let's open this up here. And so we've got a couple different bulbs. This is supposed to be semi-universal to be able to work on multiple units here. Here is our primer assembly. You can see these little barbs here. This right here is our specialty tool. So we will unhook this. And unwrap this like this. And then we have our fuel line here with our ceramic fuel filter. You can see there's a lot more line here than what I think we're going to need for this specific model. And here is our ceramic fuel filter. Alright, so I'm just going to reach in here some extra long pliers and pull that down just a bit. And then I'm just going to snip this line here like that. I'll reach in here with the extra long pliers. And then I can pull that out just like that. And so here is the used ceramic fuel filter. You see there's definitely what looks to be some very fine particulate matter in there. So that's why we're going to use a new one. They're cheap enough, there's no reason not to do this. So now you're probably wondering, how are we going to get this, with this end here firmly attached to the line with the filter, coming out the other end? And that is what our specialty puller tool is going to be for. So we're going to drop this down. This has a curve to it. And if I play this right and get that curve to come out like that, perfect. And now the other end of this line here is cut at an angle. And then if I just push that up along there a little bit, I should be able to pull this little puller tool up just like this. Use the ring. There we go. Knocked a couple other parts out here, but we got this at least through. So now I can use needle nose pliers and just pull this line in just like that, thanks to our specialty tool. It's very thoughtful of them to actually include that. I'm actually surprised they did that. But hats off to them for doing that for this repair kit. And one of the things you may want to do is to make sure that this bulb has enough line to make sure it can go all the way down to the bottom, because this is going to need to hopefully be able to suck fuel out of the bottom. There we go, something like that. I'm not sure there's a perfect arrangement to that. Maybe with a little twisting you can get that over time, it'll work its way down. And then now if we look at the excess line, we have way more line than what we need. So I'm going to cut this. If I look at how much was coming out before, I'm going to cut this a little bit long and just cut it about here with my extra line. And now our gas tank here is ready to go back over to the unit. Now let's take a look at the top end of the trimmer. We've got our bulb here that we're going to replace. Note that blue line. So we can pop that out just like that. We've got our new bulb here like this. And you can see if we look at the sizes here, we're going to put our blue line off this larger bulge here. And if you recall, our Arnold fuel kit gave us a blue line like this. However, this blue line is actually going to be too small. You see that actually fits inside of that. So that's not going to work with that bit of blue line. But we do have the other part of the other line that we have that we can use just fine. And so put that other part just right over it. There are no hose clamps on here. So then that goes through like that. This is still going to be just slightly longer, no big deal. We're going to slide this up through there, and then we'll snap in our new priming bulb. Just like that. So back here at the trimmer, we're going to take our other line here and connect this up to the other side of that primer bulb, just so we can get that connection in place. This is just going to press fit on once you get it over that little cutout there. There we go. Now that we got that bit of routing in place, I'm going to route the other end of this fuel line on this gas tank here up through the front. Just to show you that right here, up through this little hole here. And this is going to go onto this side of the carburetor. Just going to press that on just like that. So now we've got quite a bit of this in place. We're not completely done yet. I should note the other rubber bumper for this gas tank, I think was actually jammed into there, and this should look something more like that with the other rubber bumper right here that was stuck into the other housing. So you didn't see that earlier. I just pulled that out there. So now the last little bit here is you got to get this line connected into here, which is going to be our last little trick to this puzzle, if you will. And so now to finish this off here, we're going to use our specialty puller tool. We're going to push this through the hole here like this. And we're going to just spit this out over here. And then we're going to stick one end of this double barbed fitting onto one end like this. That'll go inside the fuel tank. So then to make this work, I'm going to cut a slight angle on the end of this line here. And then we will slide this on. And then hopefully that little barbed end there will then be able to poke right through the hole as we get this up here closer to it. Just like that. Puller tool came out, but our barb end is right here. So you can see I can just pull this right through. There we go. So now we've got that line secure in here. And then with this, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to use the sides of my needle nose pliers here. Use a pair of scissors for this. I'm just going to square off this end here like that. So now this end here then is going to go up to our bulb up here onto the open end on the remaining connection here. Just like that. So now we got our fuel assembly here worked out. We may need to come back and trim down some of these lines here in just a moment. We'll see how this all fits. One of the things that stands out to me is the length of the actual fuel line here. I think this is definitely too long. I think we're going to have to trim that down. Cut that just a little bit shorter. There we go. Now I think that looks like that'll work. As we work on getting this together like that, there we go. Fuel lines there, that looks good. Fuel tanks in, our lines are all solid. So next thing I'm going to do is take my air cleaning sponge. I should probably clean this out with some soap and water, but I'm just going to put this back in like this. And our cover back on like this. There we go. There's our air cleaner. Now to assemble the rest of it after we've got everything else together here is now to put on the rear cover. This is our new one. Just for a quick comparison of these two parts, here's the old one on the left and the new one on the right. And the reason why we have to buy the new one is because of its slightly deeper depth. And so if we take just a pair of dial calipers here and I set this up right here, that comes out, and we just tighten this up here. You don't even have to take a reading. We can see that. Now let's come over to the new one. And then over here on the new one, that same reading, it doesn't even fit, where this one is just slightly deeper. Here you can see the tab at the top is flat, and the new part is raised, has these little raised ridges around it. There's also an extra little ventilation right here at the top. This one's closed. There's an extra little vent hole here. Just very subtle differences in these two parts, but enough that it will cause a problem if you don't buy the new one. And this one here is just going to basically slide into place. We're going to have to get our oil or our gas tank here lined up just right with the bumpers. It's going to have a bumper that goes into this rear cover and a bumper that goes into the front. Then now with this in place, the first bolt we need to get is this bolt right here, which is our machine screw that came out before. And before it actually even came with a collar, so we're going to start with that screw first to secure this down. Alright, with that one in place, now we're going to replace this top cover here, because this top cover is going to connect, our other bolts go outside of this top cover. And so then with this down, we got our next two bolts that are going to go here and here. These are the coarse threaded bolts. I should say screws, not bolts. And we can flip this over and drop in our screws that go here and here. And then our last screw will come up front, up here. The next step in the process is going to be to replace the spark plug. I got a brand new plug. It's interesting because in the manual it specifies a Champion brand of plug, but Troy-Bilt MTD, whatever you want to call it, has this as the part number here, and this is an identical replacement. It's not branded Champion, and on the back this is actually helpful. It says to set the plug to 0.025 inches. Although in the back it looks like that is, yeah, right there, set the spark gap to 0.025 inches. I'm not sure why there's not an inch sign there, and that actually is consistent with the manual. So I got to set a feeler gauge here, set the 0.025 because I just don't trust the box here. So we'll get this brand new plug out. And we will check the gap to be 0.25. And wouldn't you know it, it is not 0.25. There we go. Now we got our 0.025 gap with our feeler gauge. It was not pre-gapped out of the package, so we did have to gap it. So now we just have to install this over into our trimmer. So now over at the trimmer, I'm going to pull the cord out of the way. I'm going to use my extra deep spark plug socket. Just go ahead and drop this plug right in like that. And I'm going to start this plug by hand. And then I'm going to go to the ratchet here and snug this down. You don't need to sit here and make this too tight, just nice and snug. Something like that feels about right. Reattach the wire. Nice positive click. And the other important thing here is make sure that your cord spins and is able to retract and is not getting bound up and is able to retract correctly. If we look here at the bottom where there's a bolt or screw there and a screw here, so that these parts actually meet up correctly. If you try this with the older part on the recoil starter pack on the back, this will not line up correctly. And so because it doesn't line up correctly, these parts here will not mate correctly, and there'll be about a 1/4 inch gap or so, give or take, there. And if you do over tighten that down, it'll put this reel kind of cockeyed on the shaft, and your cord won't be able to retract as freely as you saw there. When it comes to adding oil to the trimmer, we're going to be using the sight glass here. I'm going to fill it up halfway. It even gives us right here on the sticker, it tells us the max oil fill level is about 50% up that sight glass. And so I'm going to be using AMSOIL small engine oil. And then we're going to put this through our fill neck here, and we'll give this a start after we add some gasoline. Now before I go out to test this, I'm going to add my trimmer head on here in the end, just so that the trimmer is a little more balanced. All right, with everything tested out, we verified that it can start up correctly. It can be restarted. We can go to full throttle. We can go to partial throttle. It's holding oil. There's no oil spraying out, so everything is good so far. We've ran it with the attachment. Life is good. This is holding, so now we got this all put back together and repaired. And we also have that new spark plug, we got the new carburetor, we've got the new recoil starter. Everything is working great. So we've got a trimmer that's almost as good as new. And so you found this video useful and interesting, click the like and or the subscribe button below. Click both if you'd like. If you want the parts to do this, if you own the same Troy-Bilt TB6044XP trimmer, I'll have links below. They are affiliate links to help support this channel, where you can get those same parts that I used. And have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.